Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Conscious Counsel podcast with your host, Cory Sterling. What's up? That's me. I am to the moon excited that you are here with me. I love that it's just you and I getting to hang out and chat a little bit about some really, really important information that's going to help you keep your wellness business protected. It's going to allow you to grow properly and to build your business with confidence and clarity. So everything that I do is with the aim to make things fun and also share really helpful and practical information with a lot of storytelling as well that ultimately is going to help you protect and grow your wellness business with confidence and clarity. That's why we're here. Okay, today's episode, whoa, big one. If you're in a car, seatbelts on. If you're walking, imaginary seatbelts on. Episode title, Independent Contractor or Employee? How do I choose and why does it matter? Whoa. Okay, we're getting into it. Just so everyone knows, I have 4 stories that I'm going to share in this episode because I really want to get some major points across. So basically what this is, when you have someone working for you in Canada and the United States, and the show really is in Australia as well, but the main audience that we're focusing on is Canada and the United States. When you have someone working for you, they're going to be either a contractor or an employee. Sometimes you get to choose. Sometimes you don't get to choose. And I can speak a little bit about that. But basically, the reason why this is important to get right is because there are a lot of repercussions that will come from the decision that you make to hire someone as a contractor or employee. So now I said sometimes you choose, sometimes you don't choose. I just want to get into that so we can clear it away. Sometimes you can choose, sometimes you can't. So there are some states that if the services that you are offering, if the core service of that is carried out by someone who works for you, i.e. you're a yoga studio and you have yoga teachers, and the main function of your business is to offer yoga services to your clients, at law, that person has to be an employee. So that's going to be a state-by-state question. If you're curious about your state to understand if you can choose or not, find me on Instagram at Conscious Counsel. Just shoot me a note and I'll be happy to answer it and get you a quick answer on that. But let's say that we've passed that threshold and you actually get to choose. There are different implications of having either a contractor or an employee, and all of them are significant. So in essence, the basic idea is that when you have an independent contractor, they run their own business and you have very little control over the way the services they provide for your business go. So you don't really get to tell them when they have to show up. You're not allowed to tell them when they show up. You're not allowed to tell them how they're supposed to do something. There's a whole set of rules about the lack of control that you have. Whereas when you have an employee, you get full control. You have to be here at this time. You follow the system, you follow the process, you do things an exact way. Now, I'm going to share a couple of the different stories that I've been through with clients that talk about what happens around this choice and when it's done properly or not. And just so you know, you have to be really, really careful about this. And you have to get it right. So the first story that I'm going to share involves a studio owner who had a bunch of contractors, and one of them was causing a lot of trouble and a lot of problems. And what very frequently will happen in the health and wellness space, and I don't know why specifically it always happens, but it often does happen. I think just because, again, this information is not widely spoken about or really readily available. But I had a client who was a studio owner who had all contractors and was having a really big problem with one teacher at the studio, who was just causing problems and gossiping and being mean to other people, like everything bad that bad people will do, this particular teacher was doing. So obviously the studio owner was like, hey, I want this person out of my business. And they tried to come up with, hey, they didn't have a rock solid agreement. They never put that much thought into either having a proper 1099 contractor agreement or having employee agreements. And they wanted the person out. And she tried to get the teacher out. And the teacher was like, well, actually, that's not how this is going to go, because you've called me an independent contractor for the past 4 years, but you've treated me like an employee. And these are all the different ways that you've treated me like an employee. Like if I report your business to the IRS, you're definitely going to be deemed to have had employees. And then you're going to have to pay back taxes, and you're going to have to pay penalties, and you're going to have to pay all of these things. Therefore, this is how the situation is going. Like, you're going to pay me $15,000 and, keep me on pay for another month, and a whole suite of different demands. Like, how crazy is this? These things really do happen. And in that situation, I was brought on to help my client navigate the situation. And I know I say this every episode, and I'm always going to, but your legal position is the most important thing for your business. So I said to my client the magic words. I said, please send me a copy of the signed agreement. I received a copy of the agreement. It was very bad. I asked some questions to understand how the studio owner was really treating the staff. Did they get to make their own schedules? Did she control the way the services were done? Did they have to wear uniforms or clothes with the studio name on it? And ultimately, in that situation, the teacher was correct in that they were called contractors but treated like employees, and we ultimately had to negotiate a settlement, which sucked, and it sucked, and it was a very, very expensive lesson for that client to learn. But to me, the reason why this matters to all of you, and the reason why that you should know about this, is like, one of the risks of not classifying properly is that your teachers can hold you hostage, and I hate those situations. I hate when that happens. Another situation, and this is a more of a good feeling story, happened with a client recently of mine in Texas who had an employment agreement. Again, had a problem employee working at the studio and wanted to get rid of the person. I drafted the employment agreement for the studio. It had a specific at-will employment provision. So there was a provision in the agreement that said, hey, at any time you can leave us, at any time we can leave you, following the legal practices and the relevant rules at the time. And this problem employee was like really, really baiting the studio owner to like try to make a problem or try to dismiss them for harassment, or making all of these allegations against the studio owner. It's so ugly. It gets so nasty. And I was like, let me deal with it. Send everything to me. Terminated the agreement, terminated the at-will employment, followed all of the rules, and the person left. And the problem was resolved and finished. And that's an example of like, when you have the right agreement with the right provisions, you're in control of the situation. And if you just think about those two stories together, in the second story, my client had the right agreement, had the right classification, and was able to get rid of the problem. It was like one WhatsApp voice note. She's like, hey, I'm having a problem with this person, told me the whole story. I was like, cool, I got it. Send me a copy of this signed agreement. We'll take care of it. So one of the big issues when it comes to the contractor-employee distinction is going to be the relationships that you have with your staff and how they respond to that, and making sure that you're classifying them properly so that they don't have any leverage on you as a studio owner. Also, what will happen are audits. So one of the biggest issues that will happen and sometimes businesses are chosen at random, and sometimes, the businesses are reported by a worker, and I've seen that as well. But a tax authority and the government wants to make sure that you're treating employees like employees and treating contractors like contractors, and that you're following the latest legal tests and that everything's being done properly. And I've been part of two situations with an audit. One where it was my client who was audited by the state of New York for having independent contractors. We drafted the independent contractor agreement. I was super strict with my client about how the services had to be provided so that there was no control and that we met all of the relevant tests. And my client got through that particular audit unscathed, which was amazing. Like, legally, that's why I'm in business. That's what I do to set clients up to succeed. Conversely, I had another studio who came to me after they were audited. They actually purchased a studio from someone else, and they didn't look through the studio purchase agreement significantly. And it ended up being, and they just continued on having the staff as contractors. The business got audited. This was in Canada by the CRA, and they were assessed a whole, and when I say whole, I mean like hundreds of thousands of dollars of back taxes and interest fees and penalties, and they had to close their studio because the CRA, the Canadian Revenue Agency, and it's the IRS in the United States said, hey, actually, we want to make sure that these people really are contractors because it seems like you got a whole lot of them. And for whatever reason, the business got flagged. The independent contractor agreement did not meet the relevant legal test. And they determined for however many years they had been going on in business, they had been misclassifying their workers. And so they had to pay all of these fees, and ultimately they had to close the business, which really, really sucks. Obviously, really, really sucks is an understatement. It's someone's business. It's their life. They poured so much money and time into it. And so it's really, really important that we get these things right. So I hope that these stories are informative and interesting for you. And what's awesome is that these people have made mistakes. And because they've made their mistakes, you don't have to make the same mistakes either. And that's also why I'm taking the time to share this information. So again, just sort of zooming out, contractors versus employees. It's the classification you give a worker who works for your business. The reason why you should care is because this is going to help you protect your assets. It's going to help you have the best relationships. And in the event there's some form of government audit, it's going to make sure that you're on the right side of the audit. Everything's really at stake. Your well-being, your peace of mind, the relationships you have with your staff, and also avoiding significant fees and penalties and interest on penalties. So if you're not sure whether or not your business should have contractors or employees, feel free to shoot me a note on Instagram. You can just find us at Conscious Counsel and say, hey, Cory, what's up? I was listening to your episode on contractors or employees. Based on my state, can I have them? Or based on the business that I'm running, can I have them? My take on this situation is that it's really, really important to get done correctly. And I really don't have a preference for what my clients choose when they have the ability to choose between contractor or employee. But what matters is that they follow the rules. So this is one of those areas of law where if you're calling them contractors, you actually have to treat them like contractors. And probably the most aggressive I am with my clients is making sure that they follow those rules because ultimately it's for their own well-being. Again, this is something that seems really complicated, but it's not. If you work with professionals who understand your industry and who have experience doing this, it's something that's really, really simple and can be taken care of proficiently and quickly and easily. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I want you to be protected. I want you to grow your business with clarity and ease. Being able to classify your workers is important. Shoot me a note on Instagram at Conscious Counsel and just be like, yo, Cory, that episode was amazing. You're so much... I don't even know what I was going to say, but you're awesome, Cory, and thank you. Those words do mean a lot to me. But just shoot me a note and hit me up. The reason why I spend the time to record these episodes is to see you protected, to take things that are complicated and simplify them, and most importantly, to make them fun. And how crazy was that? 4 stories in one episode? I absolutely loved it. So you keep being you, try your best, stay positive, keep an amazing attitude, and remember, make sure you are working with a lawyer who loves you.